For 40 years, the British worker has been sold a single, comforting idea. Retirement is a fixed destination, a date on the calendar. You circle it, you count down to it, and you assume that when you finally arrive, the system will be waiting to take over. The state pension, the savings, the paid-off house, a safety net stretched wide beneath you. But in 2026, that net has become a mathematical mirage. It looks solid from a distance. It looks like something you could fall back into. And then you look closer, and you realize the ropes were quietly cut years ago, one frozen threshold at a time. Today we're going to walk through the real reason. So many Brits are discovering they simply cannot afford to stop working, and it has almost nothing to do with laziness and everything to do with the maths. It starts on the day the laptop goes back. You hand in the machine, you clear the desk, and for the first time in decades, nobody needs anything from you by 9 in the morning. And here's what almost nobody warns you about. Work was never just income. Work was scaffolding. It held up the shape of your entire week. It gave you a reason to stand up on any random morning, a place to be, a version of yourself that felt useful. For the first few weeks, the absence of that scaffolding feels like freedom. No commute, no inbox, no meetings you never wanted to attend. Then the first few months arrive, and the freedom quietly curdles into something else, a void. You find yourself standing in the kitchen at the start of the work week, with nowhere to be, realizing that the structure holding your identity together was the very thing you'd spent 40 years trying to escape. Now let's talk about the money, because the emotional void has a financial twin. I want you to picture your pension pot as a phone battery. Years ago, the arithmetic was simple. You retired with a battery at 100%. You ran a few basic functions, food, bills, the occasional holiday, and that charge lasted the whole journey. In 2026, that same battery is running dozens of background apps you never chose to install. Higher council tax, draining it silently in the background. Rising energy caps, ticking down your charge whether you use the power or not. And the quietest drain of all, the success tax of frozen thresholds, pulling from your balance every single month. So you sit there, 65 years old, staring at a battery, reading 15%, doing the mental math, wondering if this charge can possibly last until the end of the journey. That success tax deserves its own moment, because it's the trap nobody feels closing. The personal allowance, the amount you can earn before HMRC takes a slice, has been frozen at £12,570. Frozen until at least April 2028. Now, freezing a number sounds harmless, but wages rise, pensions rise, the triple lock pushes the state pension up. And as all those numbers climb toward a line that refuses to move, more and more of your income crosses it. This is fiscal drag, and it is ruthless precisely because it is invisible. Nobody sends you a letter announcing a tax rise. Your allowance simply stands still while everything else walks straight past it. In 2026, almost every pound of private pension income you draw, from your SIP, from your drawdown, from your workplace scheme, is now taxable. The safety net has a hole in it, and HMRC is standing underneath, holding a bucket. But you might say, I'm fine, my house is worth a fortune. And this is where we meet the cruelest illusion of British retirement, paper wealth. Picture a couple in the home counties, in the leafy southeast. On paper, they are millionaires in waiting. Their house is worth £800,000, and yet they hesitate over a meal out. They check the receipt at the supermarket. They put one item back at the checkout and tell themselves they didn't really need it. How can this be? Because their wealth is locked in the bricks. You cannot spend a wall. You cannot eat a spare bedroom. When every pound of your success is trapped in the value of the roof over your head, you don't own that house. You are a tenant of your own success, paying rent in the currency of anxiety. Here's the second picture I want to burn into your memory. Retirement is not a resting place. Retirement is a takeoff. To get a plane into the air, you need two things: speed and tarmac. In money terms, speed is your capital, the size of your pot. Tarmac is time, the years you have left to build and grow it. For a whole generation of British workers, that runway has been cut in half. With interest rates sitting around 5%, borrowing is punishing and growth is harder to catch. And with median savings painfully low, the average worker is trying to haul a heavy, fully loaded aircraft into the sky, using maybe 10% of the road they actually need. A plane that runs out of tarmac doesn't gently stop. It simply never leaves the ground. And so, quietly, on the start of another work week, a realization lands. You are trading your vitality, your best years, your energy, your finite mornings for a safety net that is shrinking every single day. You are pouring water into a bucket while someone drills holes in the bottom, which brings us to the trap that catches the professional class hardest. Staying put in a high-cost area, the home counties, the desirable postcodes, acts as a silent work-forever tax. Here's the drawdown math that so many people miss. When you build your retirement plan, you calculate how much you need to draw each year to survive. But if you insist on drawing that income inside one of the most expensive regions in the country, your required number balloons, the sheer cost of existing there, the council tax, the services, the lifestyle you've anchored yourself to, forces you to keep earning long after you'd planned to stop. You didn't choose to work forever. Your postcode chose it for you. Now let's put hard numbers on the gap, because this is the figure that should be on every kitchen wall in Britain. The full new state pension, the reward for a lifetime of national insurance contributions, all those years of NI quietly leaving your payslip, pays roughly £13,000 a year. That is the floor the system provides. But the PLSA modest standard, the amount a couple actually needs for a modest, no-frills retirement, is roughly £28,000 a year. Do the subtraction. That is a gap of £15,000. £15,000 of pure, personal responsibility that the state does not cover, cannot cover, and was never truly designed to cover, and you cannot vote it away. Even with the triple lock faithfully protecting the state pension's annual rises, the floor is still just a floor. The triple lock guards the bottom of the ladder. It does nothing about the £15,000 rung missing from the middle. And here's the detail that shatters the old script entirely. The old dream said you'd own your home outright by retirement. But in 2026, over 1 million retirees are still paying off a mortgage. Later starts on the property ladder. Term stretches, pushing the loan out to 30, 35, even 40 years just to afford the monthly payment. So they carry the single biggest bill of their lives, across the finish line, and straight into retirement, on a fixed and fragile income. And every one of those bills is quietly getting heavier because of the drain nobody can switch off. Inflation. Let me make it concrete. £100 today, in 2026, has the purchasing power that just £72 did only 7 years ago. Nearly a third of your money's strength gone. Not stolen in one dramatic robbery, but eroded, silently, morning after morning. So what do you actually do? The pivot is not work harder. The pivot is a change in what you are working for. For your whole career, you worked for a paycheck, a number that arrives, gets spent, and vanishes. The new game is working for a margin, the gap between what your assets produce and what your life costs. A paycheck ends the moment you stop. A margin, once you build it, keeps breathing on its own. This is the difference between an income that dies with your job title and an income that outlives it. Whether you build that margin through a SIP, a well-fed ISA, or a diversified drawdown strategy, the principle is identical. Stop renting your survival and start owning it. Because here is the final truth of British money in 2026. Wealth is no longer about your job title, your salary, or the badge on your business card. It is about your mathematical resilience. The people who will actually stop working are not the ones with the biggest houses or the grandest job histories. They are the ones whose private assets produce enough oxygen for them to breathe, regardless of what any government does with the triple lock, regardless of where HMRC decides to move the line. True freedom was never a date on a calendar. It's a margin on a spreadsheet, and the sooner you start building it, the more runway you'll have left to fly. If you learned something, make sure to hit like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.